The bulldozer was already at the gate, and there I stood, holding a box of documents exposing the HOA. I went live. They want to demolish my shed because it holds evidence against them. An hour later, the police arrived. But what happened next, no one was prepared for. My name is George Martinson. I live in the suburbs of Des Moines, in a house I inherited from my parents. It's not new or glamorous, but it's warm. The kitchen cabinets still creak like they did back in the 80s. The walls are covered with time-darkened photographs, and from the ceiling above the stairs hangs that same fan I never got around to fixing. This place is steeped in time and woven with memory. But there's one detail an outsider would probably overlook. The shed. Old, wooden, its paint peeling. The door is barely hanging on, and the roof is rotting in places. Most people would tear it down without a second thought. But to me, it's almost sacred. What's inside isn't just junk. It's my father's tools, his archives, his belongings. After he passed, I couldn't bring myself to sort through them. I simply locked the shed and left it be. It stood there, bothering no one. And then, a letter. Tuesday. I had just brewed my coffee, stepped onto the porch, and there it was in the mailbox. A white envelope bearing the HOA logo. I opened it right there in the morning sun, and as soon as I skimmed the first few lines, the coffee grew cold in my hand. Notice: your structure has been deemed unauthorized. Demolition required within 10 days. No prior warning, no discussion. Not even a hint of dialogue, just a sentence. A verdict. I reread the letter 3 times, trying to find something human. A justification, a citation of regulations, anything to make sense of this circus. But no, just dry wording, just pressure. I called immediately. The HOA office number was still in my old address book, just in case. The chairman himself answered. Mark Greenfield. He picked up fast, like he was expecting the call. Yes, George. I'm aware of the situation. This is standard procedure. The shed violates the unified architectural style of our community. Nothing personal. His voice was ice cold, as if he wasn't speaking to me but reading off a script. No apologies, no offer to discuss, just a full stop. I went silent. For a minute. Then I said, But it's been standing since the 70s. It's even marked on the old property plan. But Greenfield cut me off. The plan is lost. New rules apply now. Have a good day, Mr. Martinson. He hung up. And that's when I knew. This isn't about architecture. It's not about style. It's about something else. And that something starts with my shed. Instinct is a strange thing. It doesn't always speak in words. Sometimes it whispers. In your chest, your gut, somewhere beneath the ribs. That's how it was for me. I've never been the kind of person to see a conspiracy in every letter. I've always tried to live quietly. But after the conversation with Greenfield, something clicked inside me. Something didn't add up. The tone was too sharp. The response, too quick. That nothing personal, way too personal. And then I remembered something my father once said. It was just a few days before he passed. He was lying in his chair by the fireplace, covered in an old blanket. Weak, but lucid. I was trying, out of habit, to clean out the shed, toss away the old stuff, when he suddenly raised his hand and said softly, almost in a whisper, George, don't touch the boxes with papers. Promise me. Just leave them. In case one day. Back then, I didn't think much of it. Figured the old man was just being sentimental. But now, it sounded like a warning, like a signal sent from the past. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept turning it over in my head, pacing through the house, staring at the shed through the window. It stood there in the dark, like a silent sentinel. And I felt it. I had to go in. Right then. I grabbed a flashlight, gloves, threw on my old jacket, and stepped outside. The wind had picked up. Trees rustled like they knew what I was about to do. The hinge on the door groaned like a voice from deep within. Inside, it smelled of dust, oil, and time. I wove my way past shelves, boxes, old jars of nails and wires. And there, that stack of cardboard boxes, labeled in my father's handwriting. Archive, 1998-2017. I opened the first one. Right away, accounting reports, carefully sorted by year. I flipped through a couple of folders and was about to leave when something caught my eye. Receipts, a lot of them, all for 5-digit sums. Transfers from the HOA's account, marked as contractor payments for common area repairs, landscaping, technical audits. But the most important part, the company names. I started looking them up on my phone and realized not a single one of them existed. At all. Then I saw the signatures. On every invoice, every report. A flourish I recognized instantly. Mark Greenfield. I sat down right there on a crate. My heart was pounding like I'd just run a marathon. I stared at the papers like they were landmines. These weren't just documents. They were evidence, clear as day. And all this time, they'd been stored in my shed. And in that moment, everything fell into place. They didn't want to get rid of the shed. They wanted to get rid of what was inside. In the morning, I woke up with a clear decision. I couldn't hide anymore. I had barely slept, surrounded by papers. I sat on the floor with coffee and stacks of folders, highlighting numbers, names, dates. From somewhere deep within came a kind of strength. Not fear, not anger, but strength. As if my father's voice whispered, "Now you know. Do what you must." I selected the most damning parts of the archive. Contracts, receipts, transfer records. I packed them into an old shoebox. On top, I placed that one folder with Greenfield's signatures. Like a seal. Like the final card in the deck. Around noon, I stepped outside. The sky hung low and gray, as if it too sensed that something was about to happen. I stood at the gate, the box at my feet. In one hand, I held my phone. In the other, the remote for a wireless speaker hooked up to an old amp. And then I saw it. The bulldozer slowly making its way down the street. A yellow beast, crawling like a sentence being passed. Beside it, a vehicle marked with the HOA logo. I hit live on YouTube and started streaming. Live broadcast. My name is George Martinson. Right now, in front of my home, without a court order, without a hearing, they are preparing to demolish my shed. But this isn't about the shed. It's about what's inside. I leaned down, lifted the box, and held it up to the camera. These documents may explain why the HOA suddenly became obsessed with architectural uniformity, because this shed has, for years, stored evidence of their embezzlement. Yes, I'm talking about the HOA chairman, Mark Greenfield. I spoke calmly, but inside I was on fire. My knees trembled, but my voice was steady. In those few minutes on air, I finally became the man my father might have always hoped I'd be, a man who wouldn't stay silent. And then, it all began. Comments started pouring in. Someone wrote they had also done repairs through the same companies, and couldn't find them in any registry either. Someone forwarded the video to local journalists. Someone tagged a news channel. The likes came in by the hundreds. 47 minutes later, a siren howled down the street. The first police cruiser pulled up. Right behind it, a journalist with a mic and a cameraman. Neighbors began stepping out onto their porches. And the bulldozer? It stopped right at the gate. The driver got out and lit a cigarette. He wasn't stupid. He got the message. Greenfield didn't show up. Instead, a lawyer arrived. Gray suit, nervously adjusting his glasses. He tried to talk to the officers, showed them some documents. But you could tell. He was too late. The truth was already out. A week passed, and it was the strangest week of my life. The HOA, the very same board that had tried to tear down my shed, was temporarily suspended by a decision from the city council. The reason? A financial audit and an investigation into possible corruption schemes. The wording was dry, clinical, but in truth, they'd been caught. The HOA office was raided. Computers, servers, flash drives, all confiscated. And yes, among the documents I handed over, there was enough to open a criminal case. 3 days after my live stream, Mark Greenfield was arrested. At home. No warning, no spectacle. Quietly, the way they deal with those who thought they were untouchable. The shed, that crooked little structure they used to look down on with disdain, became the center of forensic investigation. It was sealed off. Forensics teams came and went. I stood at my window, watching investigators pass through my backyard gate, carefully carrying folders, gloved hands treating them like artifacts. And you know what made it all feel especially ironic? That shed had always been seen as an eyesore. People disliked it, complained about it, made jokes. And now it was all over the local news as the epicenter of the year's biggest exposé. It was written about, filmed by drones. Journalists asked if they could get a closer look. I became a key witness. I was called in for questioning, gave testimony, retold the details, explained how I found the documents. At first I was nervous, stumbling, unsure. But over time I realized I had done the right thing. You know, I never wanted any of this. I wasn't looking for a fight. I didn't crave revenge. I just wanted to live quietly in my home, with my memories, my routines, my morning coffee on the porch. But if you go up against the truth, if you start tearing down someone else's walls without knowing what's behind them, sometimes even a shed can bury you.